are super excited to be here today with Mollie Garre, who is currently in San Diego. And part of the journey of this week has just been being able to visit with different artists across the country as they share their stories and open up just a little bit about how they got from point A to point Z in their artistic journey. And for those of you watching who don't know, I am the founder of heArt Studios, and we exist to break the generational cycles of abuse and trauma by transforming the heart through creative expression. And we do so by partnering with artists such as Mollie that will walk alongside our youth that have been impacted by domestic violence or trauma to share their giftings in a way that speaks creative expression. Just get excited for some of the stuff she's about to share with you. Her background is in social work, so that is right up the alley, but she actually travels the country, if not internationally, painting and doing different artistic elements. And so she's found herself an amazing career out of being an artist. Mollie, I'd love to hear more about you. Tell us more.
Hi. Oh, well, I think you covered such a snapshot right there. So I am a mom to three. I am a former clinical social worker, which is where I found my base in my passion in helping people. But at the end of it, you always have to help yourself. You have to be able to give yourself passion so you can feel your purpose. And at the end of it, I always find myself back with paintbrush. So the two they're not separate for me.
They're not. They are definitely linked hand in hand. And what is it about the paintbrush? What is it that makes you so passionate about the arts and the creative arts?
So actually, I think there's a scenario that actually it dawned on me. I was at my first clinical internship as a social worker, and I got to sit down with a group of women who I was going to walk through a mindfulness exercise with. And if you've ever done that, the first thing you do is you close your eyes. So as soon as I said, okay, everyone, will you please close your eyes? And here's my little nervous 24-year-old self. And the lady next to me grabbed my arm and said, I'm not ready to close my eyes. And it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. I absolutely understand where you're coming from. And I flipped over my paper and I shoved it over and I said, why don't you just doodle? Just doodle with whatever I'm saying. Just express it through the pencil. I mean, it was a pencil and a paper. And when it was done, it was full of flowers and zigzags and all these expressions. And I thought, some of us aren't ready to close our eyes. We have to be able to let ourselves go in a different way. And I think that's where when it comes to anything that's hard or just life, sometimes we're not ready to close our eyes. We can't just meditate or go to sleep. We have to be able to let ourselves go. And art just really help that along.
What a beautiful story. I love that. Just the visual of, well, one, you're holding her hand and then walking alongside, just sitting there with her in her place. That's such a huge goal of ours at the studio, is to be able to be that safe space for kids who are living in or
Yes.
who have escaped some sort of trauma. There's so many statistics saying today that the domestic violence rate is climbing, and it's due to the pandemic. But alongside that, kids are just depressed really out of their minds and their souls because of what they're living in at home right now. There's no socialization for them. And I love the thought of them being able to come into the studio and we're their safe space for them, but they would never have to close their eyes. They don't have to go there. They can organically and, just really naturally start a healing process through the creative arts. And so that's really how you got started. Is that like the moment when you were like, this is what I need to do the rest of my life?
Yeah. So from there on out, I would have one-on-one clients, and I found that, well, they were all women, which has helped. And I feel like there's a lot of projection that happened in those scenarios. And there was some clients that it was harder for them to talk. And I found that if they had something in their hand, this is how I would feel too. If I had something in my hand, to be able to just kind of let the flow, let my mind not feel so stressed out about somebody staring at me, it just let me story tell a lot better. And so that's how I felt that, those two go hand in hand. You have to be able to let yourself relax and not be under so much pressure in order to let that flow. So that really did start it all. And it just was an aha moment more than anything. I mean, I've always used art to get through hard stuff, and I still do. But it's just that one way to just let go and not have to be under pressure of telling yourself to let go.
Yes, yes, 100%. And there's such a fun. There is a fun story, but there's such a powerful story about putting something to paper, whether it be a paintbrush or a pen or a pencil. And I know that's your traditional setting. And our goal at the studio is to actually house these different studios of the creative world.
Mm.
So what one might resonate with the paintbrush might not resonate with a photography class, and fashion design and floral design and dance, choreography, songwriting, all of the basically worlds of art we want to bring in under one roof, so that like I said, where one might resonate, one might not, and they're able to just interact with each other. But it basically it comes up down to it being just a universal language. Creative expression is that universal language for us to really interact with each other, relate to each other, resonate to one another. Have you experienced that in your journey of becoming the artist that you are?
Yeah. So one of the neatest opportunities I've had is I work with a school here in San Diego, and they're half public, half private funded, and they only have folks that are homeless impacted. So all of these youth, they get all the services they need at the school. I mean, it's just all inclusive. It's phenomenal. And I'll go there and teach classes. And kind of naively, I walk in there thinking we're going to do calligraphy, and it was going to be this display for their school. And we started doing it, and everyone wanted not to write their own name. Not They wanted to write either their mom's name or somebody that meant a lot to them, and they wanted to learn how to write their name really beautifully and to tell them how much they love them. Oh, and so
That's good.
it really, it really hit home that they wanted to express their love through their art. And so we got, long story short, we got no display out of this. Every single one of those kiddos took those hearts home, because it was supposed to be butterflies and hearts. And they took all these butterflies and hearts and they gave them to their moms and their, dads and their brothers and sisters. And part of me thought that was the most beautiful thing that could have come of it. I had to finish the display by myself, but I was just so pleased to see them be able to express themselves through writing. I mean, I love calligraphy, and to be able to write your name in a beautiful way, or just to write words in a beautiful way, really lets it sink into your brain, and just you almost get to meditate over that word or that person. And that's really powerful.
Just the therapeutic resonance that is that, letting your brain just
Yes.
soften and just take a deep breath, and I try to do that for myself. My banner that I stand behind is self-care is healthcare. And with
Yes.
that comes a creative element, and we're consistently being encouraged to slow down and take a deep breath. And I actually part of my story was I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia a couple years ago, and the doctor said, when you're having a flare up, take to a creative skill, like get an adult coloring book and color. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I paid you all this money for you to tell me to color, really? And
Yes.
what was so interesting was that he was able to show us a video, the scientific evidence behind what your brain is doing when you're having a flare up. And, your right side of your brain with your left side can't typically work at the same time together. And I'm sure you know this, but I found it so interesting that when I did, I started coloring, the right side of my brain would just go into motion, and I completely forgot about the pain. And
Mhm.
there's something to be said about that. And I think that's really what ignited me to just finally dive in and do this for kids that are hurting so bad. They're in so much
Yeah.
pain. If we can get them to ignite that right side of their brain,
Oh my gosh.
it's going to be an incredible healing journey for them. And
Right. Well, I
so
relate to you. I have fibromyalgia also, which is what took me to this journey 4 years ago, when I was in too much pain, and that trauma and that pain response, you have to be able to do something. And you explained it perfectly. Yes.
I had no idea. Well, did we
Yeah,
just become best friends?
I know, right?
But no, that's so incredible. And I think, like, again, that's my story. That's what I stand on. That's my
Yes.
soapbox. But how have you used it personally? I mean, you're saying with the fibro, but is there other, examples that you've been able to say art has really helped me in this way? Dot dot dot.
Yeah. So fibromyalgia, I also have a painful bladder syndrome. So I couldn't stand a lot. I couldn't sit in a certain way. I mean, I just couldn't even move my body. And it was so overwhelming that I had to find an escape, but I also had to find my passion. and to give myself purpose. Because when you're overwhelmed with pain, you lose track of all that. You lose your passion, you lose your purpose, you lose all of it. And art brought that back. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And what a what a message to carry with you while you're not only being able to do your art for yourself, the people that you've already touched and the people that you've already helped with it, they're able to express themselves and find the beauty and be pain free.
Yes.
I yeah, I just want to like hold on to that nugget because that's at the end of the goal. That at the end of the day is our goal with these kids. We want them to
Yes.
be able to leave pain free. And we know that that's going to be a long, grueling journey. Some of them just don't know how to start, some of them just don't know where to start. And we aren't negating traditional therapy. We would partner alongside, traditional therapists in
Yeah.
counseling sessions, but we want to work with and bring in art therapists and music
Yes.
therapists, dance therapists, ones that are doing it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in youth, it's they're finding that they're more apt to start a healing journey through creative expression versus having to talk about it. And
Yes.
and that's, I mean, that's what we stand for. And it sounds like you're already there doing it. And I commend you. And
Oh,
so with you doing it for yourself, have you been able to help others?
I hope so. I mean, sometimes you'll just never know. I think there's, how you just said that you have to just start. And I always actually had it on my studio wall for a long time. You can't have start without art. I mean, art is literally in start. And you just have to start somewhere. I actually, back to when I was in a clinical setting and I had a supervisor who was really skeptical of, why were your clients drawing and writing? Like, why? Like, what's the purpose of that? And I was like, well, they could just story tell better. You can just express yourself. And she said, well, what if these stories are made up and they're just drawing nonsensical things and telling you nonsensical things? And I said, hey, but if they wake up every day ready to come in and talk to me about nonsensical things, they woke up and they got in there. And that's where they start.
Mm,
And I was just really like, I just wanted to make sure everyone kept coming in. I'm not usually so emotional when it comes to my, like my work, but that's so important to me, is that making sure that people have a reason to get up in the morning and start. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. And I can really relate with the art and start because it's also in the word heart. And
I know. I was
we have
totally, yes.
we have a story to tell in our art, from the heart, and that's the reason why we're doing these interviews. And it's been really, really, really fun for one, but also just moving. Um,
Yeah.
you shared a little bit about some of how that works with your brother. Do you care to share a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah. So my brother was diagnosed really early on with autism. There was always a missing element, and we didn't find out until recently that he was diagnosed with SYNGAP1, which is a genetic mutation, and it's filled in a lot of gaps for us. But at the end of it, he had a lot of behavioral issues, barriers, and struggles that it was hard. It was hard for him. It was hard on our family. And the one thing that he would always be able to calm down to or come to us and be able to communicate was through art. So for hours on end, I would draw nuns because nuns was his passion. And we would go to the convent and we wouldn't really talk to them. I mean, I worked at the convent separately, but his like love of life all revolved around nuns. And so we would just draw nuns day and hundreds hours on end. We would just draw nuns, and these nuns would almost tell a story and how he's feeling. And he would draw facial expressions on these nuns, and you would understand now how he's feeling. And he was pretty limited verbally. And so that was our way of being able to tell what he was feeling, what he was going through. It was also how we were able to communicate with him. If we had to make a transition, if we had to go to the doctor, if we were at the doctor, wherever it was, Sister John was his his go-to, and that's how we were able to kind of fill in that gap, that communication gap. So essentially, art was my way of being able to communicate with him, but it was also when we weren't doing that and I could go to my room, I was always doodling, creating ABC charts, whatever it was, to just kind of be creative and let go. So that was that was what my world revolved around for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible and so uniquely specific. Nuns. This is the
So
first
very
time I've ever
specific.
heard of anybody drawing nuns. So that's awesome. Like,
Yes.
what a cool avenue that you've been able to find, and then just really relate with those around you. Your story. I just want to like sit on here for an hour and just ask you more questions. It's so
Oh
interesting.
gosh.
And the more that I follow your socials and what you do and have looked at your website, I'm just truly, truly inspired. But how would you say the art blessed you in the sense of whether it's you're giving back or serving with it? I know it's taken you kind of around the country.
Oh, I mean, it saved me. Absolutely. It's, I'll say it over and over. It's finding your passion and letting it fuel your purpose. And those two are so, if you can combine them, like it truly is so rewarding to be able to do something you love and know you can help people along the way. And, every time I grapple with, oh, am I just an artist or am I just a social worker? I'll always come back to the fact that they aren't separate. And I can't, because I can't, for my mental health, I can't leave art behind. And I couldn't just be, just stick with my paintbrush and never talk to the outside world. I need both for them to, for my art to communicate even what I'm feeling. I mean, that's what all art is just, putting what you're feeling onto the canvas or the paper. And yeah, and when you're out there and you're feeling the trauma that kids and people are going through, you got a lot to communicate onto that canvas. So
Yeah,
they're linked.
I think we need to just strike the word just from our vocabulary because you're not just an artist, you're not just a social worker, you are an artist and you are a social worker and
Right.
you are changing lives with your paintbrush. We hope and pray that we are changing lives or providing a way that they change their lives for their better, for their futures. And it might
Yes.
be like you said, through the paintbrush, behind the lens, on the dance floor, behind a
Yes.
computer, or designing the costumes for a dance. Whatever that looks like, we want to be able to channel and empower them to take that
Uh,
in the studio, start that healing journey, but it's so mobile and so transformable that they can take it home with them and be able to escape when they're hiding out in their bedroom. At the end of it, we want them to be able to find a passion through
oh,
creative expression so that
yes.
they can actually make and find a career out of it.
Yes.
Studies and statistics say, and you know this just as well as we do, that when children witness or are in abusive households, they're that much more likely to become abusive themselves. And if we can just break that generational cycle and we can do it by healing their heart, we've won and we've succeeded, even if it's just one child. And
Mhm.
I really relate to your story. We really relate to your story, and thank you so much for sharing it. But I do have one more question for you, and that is for those little artists out there that, maybe they're scared to pick up that paintbrush, or they don't know how to take that next step, or they think, well, maybe I won't make a career out of this, so I probably should focus on something else. What's a piece
Mhm.
of advice that you could give them?
Oh, finding a way to be able to express yourself will help you in every avenue you go. It doesn't matter if you're in a corporate job or if you are an artist, strictly with a paintbrush. Being able to express yourself and to communicate and having coping mechanisms is going to be able to take you everywhere. And so, even sports or dance and all those things, you get to work with people, you get to be able to, you learn a lot through that. So there's nothing lost on any moment spent doing something that you love.
Mm. I just want to hold on to that one and let that one sink in for a little bit because that's not just for the kids. That's for everyone needs to hear that. We all need to be able to find something where we're able to communicate and therefore cope with what we're dealing with. And I think our society would be in such a different place right now if we all had that tool in our tool belt. And
Right?
if we could start somewhere, start young, we'd be that
Yes.
much better off. And so, Mollie, I just thank you for what you're doing. I champion you, I support you, and I really respect you. You have just this presence about you that I think I want more of in my life. But I
Sometimes I felt so caught up with just the emotions of this. This is a very charged topic, and I don't think you can go into it with just a empty heart. I mean, this is truly just so charged up for all of us. I mean, we're in this because it means a lot. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
I so appreciate that. And to our viewers, if you're watching or you're friends of Molly's and you're an artist and this mission touches your heart, we would love to hear from you. We are planning on bringing artists from all over the country into the studio to be able to share their giftings with our kids. It might look like after school program, or we'll do creative camps throughout the year. But if you're really wanting to reach out and give back, shoot us an email or DM us on Instagram or Facebook, and would be happy to hear your story. But in the meantime, we are just moving and grooving to find a space here in Nashville. We don't have our physical location yet, so we are fundraising to be able to purchase the space or build it out. So also, if you're listening and you think that, well, maybe art specifically isn't my niche, but I am in a place to give and I can give back financially, we also would love it if you were able to make a donation. And you can do so on our website at heartstudios.org. So, Molly, again, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I hope this isn't the last we hear from you because I just want to stay in touch and hear more. But we will be sure to tag all your information on this video and maybe we'll find some new art friends in San Diego. So, thanks
Great.
everybody for watching and thank you for your time, Molly.
Bye.